Well, I'm Margaret Riles, and I'm a principal librarian at the John F. Germany Public Library. I'm in charge of the History and Genealogy Department at the library. One of the projects I'm working on is the Library Systems Library History Project. We're getting ready for our 100th anniversary, which we will begin celebrating in 2014 and celebrate until 2017. The first library in the county was the West Tampa Branch Library, which opened in 1914. And the city of Tampa's first library was the 7th Avenue Carnegie Library, which opened in 1917. One way of gathering our history is through the Library History Roadshow. And today, the Roadshow is stopping at the John F. Germany Library in honor of the 7th Avenue Carnegie Library. At the Roadshow, we invite library users to come in to the library and share their memories with us. Any photographs that they have brought and memorabilia are scanned and then immediately returned to them. We also have a preservation station where you can get information on how to do your own preservation projects. We have a table from the Tampa Bay History Center. Behind me, you'll see a photographic exhibit that has photographs of the 7th Avenue Carnegie Library. There are Burgert Brother prints on the display, and also many pictures from the library's own history archives. Then before you leave, we give you a keepsake photo to take with you. It's taken right where I stand with the photographic exhibit as a backdrop, and we give you that as a thank you for coming to the Roadshow.
The history of this library on 7th Avenue, it opened in 1917, and it just happens that I was born in 1917 on Oak Avenue, just 3 blocks away. The library became a very big part of our life. They had a juvenile department here, and as we got older, many trips were made to the library. We were so close we could walk to the library. And I finally remember the wonderful storytelling that the librarians would put on about 2 times a week in the basement of this building. But when I entered high school, Miss Helen Virginia Stell, who was the head librarian here at the 7th Avenue Library, asked my mother if William would be interested in working at the library. She said, my mother naturally said yes. So I went to work working 2 days a week. They had an afternoon session that lasted from, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon till 4, and took a break for supper, and the library opened again around 6:30, and opened for about 2 hours, and that was the routine on 2 days a week. And it was my duty to be there on the evening session to help the librarian in any way I could, checking books in and out. And I did all the shelving of all books turned in. And I was also required to show up on Saturday morning and work about an hour and a half as a janitor, which was very important, sweeping the place up. and learned all about the chemicals and aids of to help the brooming of the building, and met a lot of interesting people. I had a little girl at my class in high school that would come in and help me on Saturday morning. She was a member of the United States Olympic team, Margaret Reinhold. She was a swimmer and diver, and that made life more interesting to have somebody like that come by and help me. Of course, she did not get paid. And all in all, the people I knew at the library as customers and the people I worked with, it was nothing but a pleasure to be associated with the Seminole branch of the public library. When I graduated from high school, Ms. Stell offered me a job to continue on in the library at the downtown 7th Avenue Library, which I accepted and worked, doing similar work until I entered a class at the Business University of Tampa that started in June of 1935. So I had about 6 more months working in the library, and this was at downtown Tampa. And Miss Stell was the head librarian, and Miss Gates, I remember Miss Gates, who was the research type librarian, very helpful to me in many, many ways. Everybody that I worked with in the library was just a treat to be around. Miss Stell was a lovely lady. She shared a home with Miss Hoyt. Elsie Hoyt was the lady she shared her home with. And they were very close friends of my mother. And she ran a tight ship. You didn't just walk into her office. You kind of had to be announced. If you wanted a book on the birds and the bees, they were all under lock and key in her office there. And that was very interesting. I discovered that's where they were when I worked there.
We won't.
Okay, okay.
Well, most of it, I knew where it was, but most came in when I was in plant doing papers, you know, for English probably writers, and coming here to do the research for those papers. And there was a small library in Hyde Park at that time that we did use, and on some occasions. And then we moved to Palmacia, so it was a little out of range here. I mean, didn't, but came down to do those research papers for English. And later on, when I was with the city of Tampa, just after traffic engineering division was instituted, I was taking a course at South Florida in thermodynamics and came here to study for my final exam. It looked sort of grand, you know, when I first looked at it and saw it. Buildings are so much larger today and, you know, different architecture, but for that day it looked very imposing to me, you know, as a big, big library.
Well, the first memories I had of the library is in high school. If I went down there earlier than that, I just don't totally remember, but I went down there to do some research for papers and for school and to get books that I needed to read. I remember the people were very friendly that worked there and could help you out pretty well, and there was a lot of friends I would see down there when I was down there. There was, you know, a mix of high school students from Hillsborough, Jefferson down there at the same time. So a lot of people use them these days. They have special programs for the kids in a lot of the libraries, and teaching them to read early is probably the best thing for the libraries, and people enjoy. I noticed the Jan Platt Library down Manhattan is used quite a bit. There always seems to be quite a number of people, and a lot of people without computers use their computers for information.
Andrew Carnegie's philosophy was that if a community really wanted a library, he would help them get the building. But if they really wanted that library, they would provide their own materials and their own operations funding and their own staff. And people had to really write a lot of letters, get a lot of support, and then they would get the money to build their library. And that's how this library came to be. It was from the inception a Carnegie Library. Probably would not have been built had they not gotten money from the Carnegie people for it. So the people of the city of Tampa had to support the idea and the concept and petition for it and apply for it and so on and so forth. And the Carnegie Library here in Tampa, this was number 2. The first one was the West Tampa Library, which was built when West Tampa was an independent city. The downtown library, as we called it in those days, was the major hub for library service in this area and had a huge collection. I mean, there were books and papers and magazines and newspapers falling off of shelves. The library, as you went up the majestic staircase, led you into, you walked right in front of this desk, right in front of the circulation desk. And off to one side was the reference department. And off to the other side were the popular materials, as we call them today, fiction and history and that sort of thing. There was a downstairs area, which was on the west side, the children's department, on the east side, cataloging and processing. And in the children's department, children would come in, classes of children, groups of children for story hours and programs of that sort. And the children's book collection was down there as well. In the cataloging and processing department, a group of people, including myself, I worked down there at one time, that's where we processed the books. When the books arrived, when they were delivered, we had to hand letter the pockets for those books and the spine labels that said where that book was to go in the library. Was it fiction? Was it humanities? Was it art? And so it was a beehive. That's where all that back scene paperwork went, and that's where the catalog cards were prepared. Good old catalog cards, of course. By contrast, this area above the circulation desk, this was a smoked glass floor. And up there were stored back files of newspapers and back files of magazines. And so when somebody, a user, a patron, wanted something from up there, one of us would have to go around behind the circulation desk and go up the staircase to fetch it. There was a dumbwaiter. There was no elevator. There was a dumbwaiter. And the dumbwaiter is not viewed here. You can't see it from here. But we could open the dumbwaiter door, put materials on it, and pull the rope and send it up. Or somebody upstairs could pull the rope and send it down. But that's how things got back and forth up there. Across the street from us, it was interesting, there was a pool hall. Baker's Billiard Parlor was very famous. The Baker family is an old Tampa family, nice people. And billiard parlors were not always considered elegant, and that one had its share of street people, ruffians, and a bunch of nice people who just went in there to shoot pool. The first bookmobile was bought when we were in that building and had to be brought in through the back alleyway behind that building. Down in the basement was where the bookmobile collection was sorted and prepared and put on the bookmobile. We had lots of things going on, lots of people going in and out, and that library served us very, very well. However, if you look at the pictures, you can tell it was far, far too small for a growing city with a growing population and people who really needed and loved their libraries. In a culture, in a civilization, the history of mankind and what it has done for good or evil must be maintained if people are to learn from it. If children and their children are to learn what history was all about, we can only learn if we have access to those knowledge items. Paper wears out, paper is gone, but these days we're fortunate in that we can preserve paper in new ways that we could not do many years ago. We now can photograph it, we can microfilm it, we can digitize it, and we can keep that history. But as a person who loves the old stuff, I like periodically to go back and look at the original signature on a catalog card, to look at the signature of a person who contributed to the library and its history on a piece of paper where they wrote us a letter. It's important for us to know that a book is a book, whatever format it's in, But as a person who has loved books and has children and great-grandchildren to prove it, a book is a valuable part of our culture. You cannot replicate on film what you can replicate with a child sitting in your lap reading a book.